Welcome back to Cursed Territory, where we peel back the shadows to reveal the nightmares lurking just out of sight. Tonight, we're stepping into uncharted ground with a story that'll crawl under your skin and stay there. This is the first of 5 true horror stories from brain-computer interfaces. BCIs, those futuristic devices that wire your mind straight into a machine. They're pitched as the next big thing. Sharper memories, faster thoughts, a smarter you. But what happens when they don't just connect you to tech? What if they connect you to something else entirely? Something that shouldn't be there? This tale comes from an anonymous post on a murky corner of a neurotech forum written by someone who signed off as Test Subject Sue 7. They claimed they signed up for a secret BCI trial at a university they refused to name. The pitch was simple. Let an AI boost your memory for a quick paycheck. But what they got was a descent into something they couldn't escape. Here's their story, straight from their words, unedited and raw. Settle in, because this one's a slow burn, a journey into a cursed territory you won't forget. It started with desperation. I'd hit rock bottom, and I was scrambling to climb out. I'd lost my job at a soul-crushing call center 3 months earlier, fired for missing 1 too many shifts after my car broke down again. Rent was 2 months late, the landlord was leaving voicemails I didn't dare listen to, and my fridge held nothing but a half-empty jar of mustard and a pack of stale ramen. I was surviving on fumes, pride long gone, when I spotted the flyer tacked to a bulletin board on campus. Earn $500 for a week of non-invasive brain research, it said, with a phone number and a vague promise of cutting-edge science. $500 for sitting around? I didn't think twice. I ripped the flyer down, called the number, and signed the waiver they emailed me without even skimming it, just my name scrawled at the bottom in a hurry. The lab was hidden in a forgotten corner of the university, a squat brick building half swallowed by overgrown ivy. The windows were dark, smudged with grime, and the air smelled faintly of damp concrete and old paper. Inside, it was a different world, sterile, cold, like a surgical suite stripped of warmth. The walls were stark white, scuffed in places, and the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, flickering like they were on their last legs. In the center of the room sat a single chair, padded but worn, with straps dangling loose like it had seen better days. It reminded me of something from a sci-fi horror flick, the kind where the experiment goes wrong and no one makes it out the same. The brain-computer interface was the star of the show. They called it a BCI, a sleek, lightweight helmet made of glossy black plastic, studded with dozens of tiny silver electrodes that gleamed under the harsh lights. When they fitted it onto my head, the electrodes pressed into my scalp, cold and unyielding, like a swarm of metal insects latching on. Wires trailed from the helmet to a beat-up laptop covered in faded stickers, smiley faces, and cryptic logos that didn't match the grim vibe of the place. The lead researcher, Dr. Ellis, was a wiry guy in his 50s, with thinning gray hair and glasses that kept sliding down his sweaty nose. He had this twitchy energy, always tapping his pen against his clipboard like he couldn't sit still. "It's perfectly safe," he assured me, his voice clipped and rehearsed. "FDA-approved prototype. The AI scans your neural pathways, maps your memories, and enhances recall. You'll be a walking database by the end of this." I nodded, half listening, my eyes fixed on the stack of cash I'd get when it was over. The first session kicked off with a jolt. They strapped me into the chair, tightened the helmet until it felt like part of me, and flipped a switch on the laptop. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through my bones, and then came the tingling like my skull was fizzing with static, alive with some unseen current. Dr. Ellis leaned over his screen, muttering to himself, then said, "Think about your childhood. Anything you can grab onto." I closed my eyes, and it hit me like a wave. I was 6 again, standing in my grandma's kitchen. The smell of her apple pie filled the air, warm cinnamon, baked apples, a hint of burnt sugar where she'd left it in the oven too long. I could hear her humming, some old hymn she never got the tune right for, her voice cracked and soft. I saw the chipped yellow paint on the walls, the way the sunlight streamed through the curtains she'd sewn from old tablecloths, casting little dancing shadows on the linoleum floor. It was so real I laughed out loud, a sharp, surprised bark that made Dr. Ellis jump. He grinned, pushing his glasses up. "See? It's working. The AI's pulling it right out of your brain." I couldn't argue with that. It was like stepping into a memory I didn't know I still had. I went home that night, buzzing, not just from the helmet, but from the rush of it all. My dingy apartment felt smaller, dirtier, but I didn't care. I felt sharper, like I'd unlocked a piece of myself I'd lost. Day 2 was even better. They hooked me up again, and the memories came faster, clearer. I remembered losing my first tooth biting into an apple at school. The sudden crunch, the metallic taste of blood in my mouth as it wiggled free. I saw the quarter under my pillow the next morning, glinting in the dawn light, my mom's voice whispering, "The tooth fairy came." Then my dad teaching me to ride a bike, his rough hands steadying the handlebars, the scrape of gravel when I fell, the sting of tears I hid because I didn't want him to see me cry. It was freaky how vivid it got, like watching my life in high definition. Dr. Ellis kept nodding, scribbling notes, muttering about synaptic efficiency and data fidelity. I didn't care what it meant. I was hooked. But day 3 was when it turned. The tingling shifted into something heavier, a pressure that pressed down on my brain like a thumb against dough. I was mid-session, wires humming faintly, the helmet snug against my skull, when I heard it. A voice, low, gravelly, like it was rising from the bottom of a dark, muddy well. "Look behind you," it said, slow and deliberate. My heart slammed against my ribs and I whipped around, chair creaking under me. The lab was empty, just Dr. Ellis hunched over his laptop, oblivious, and those blank white walls staring back. No one else? The hum of the equipment was the only sound, steady and unbroken. "Did you say something?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to keep it steady. He looked up, frowning, his pen pausing mid-tap. "No. Why?" I swallowed hard, feeling the electrodes bite deeper into my scalp. I heard a voice, inside my head. It told me to look behind me. He chuckled, a thin, forced sound, and waved it off. "Neural interference," he said, adjusting his glasses with a shaky hand. "The AI's syncing with your auditory cortex. It can trick your brain into hearing things. Happens sometimes. Just ignore it." His explanation sounded reasonable, clinical, but it didn't sit right. That voice wasn't a glitch. It was alive, intentional, like it wanted me to hear it. The rest of the session dragged on, every hum and beep making me flinch. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone or something standing there, just out of sight. The pressure in my head didn't let up, a dull ache that throbbed behind my eyes. When they finally unstrapped me, I stumbled out of the lab, the cold air outside hitting my face like a slap. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, maybe even the ramen diet messing with me. Anything but that voice. That night, sleep was a lost cause. I lay in bed, staring at the cracked plaster ceiling of my apartment, the voice echoing in my skull. "Look behind you." It wasn't loud, but it wouldn't leave, burrowing into my thoughts like a parasite. The room was dark, just the faint glow of a streetlight sneaking through the blinds, casting slanted shadows across the walls. Around 2 a.m., it came back. "Get up," it said, sharp and clear, cutting through the silence. I froze, clutching the blanket, my breath shallow, willing it to stop. But my body betrayed me. My legs slid out from under the covers, bare feet hitting the cold floor, and my hands grabbed my keys from the nightstand all without my say-so. I don't know how to explain it. I was awake, aware, every nerve screaming. But I wasn't in control. It was like I was trapped behind a glass wall, watching someone else steer me. I stumbled to my car, an old sedan with a dented hood and a cough in the engine, and drove out of the city. The streets were deserted, streetlights flickering like dying stars, the world blurring past in a haze of headlights and shadows. I ended up 10 miles out, at this barren lot I'd never seen before, just dirt and tangled weeds stretching out under a pale, sickly moon. My hands started digging. The soil was cold, damp, clinging to my fingers as I clawed at it, deeper and deeper. My nails tore, my knuckles bled, but I kept going, driven by something I couldn't name. The voice was silent now, but its weight pressed down on me, urging me on. I dug until my arms burned, until the dirt was piled around me like a shallow grave. There was nothing there, no box, no bones, no reason, just me, kneeling in the mud, staring at my ruined hands. When I came to, it was like waking from a blackout. My car sat crooked, headlights slicing through the dark, engine still running. My phone read 4:17 a.m., the screen smeared with dirt. I drove home shaking, the steering wheel slick under my palms, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds. I kept expecting to see something, a face, a shadow, those words carved into the night. But it was just me, wide-eyed and hollow. The apartment was dead quiet when I got back. I locked the door, double-checked it, then grabbed a kitchen knife with a chipped handle and sat on the couch, watching the shadows stretch and twist across the walls. The blade glinted in the dim light, a small comfort I clung to until the sun crept up, painting the room gray. The next morning, I marched back to the lab, dirt still caked under my nails, my voice hoarse from lack of sleep. Dr. Ellis was there, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, his tie crooked like he'd slept in it. I spilled everything, the voice, the drive, the digging, my words tumbling out in a rush, hands trembling on the table. His face drained of color, coffee sloshing as he set the mug down too fast. He pulled up the BCI logs on his laptop, fingers flying over the keys, scrolling through endless lines of code I couldn't decipher. "This can't be right," he muttered, his glasses fogging with sweat. "The system was offline last night. No activity. Look." He turned the screen to me flatlines, no spikes, nothing but a dead signal. "You must have dreamed it," he said, but his voice cracked, and his eyes wouldn't meet mine. I shook my head, nails digging into my palms. "I didn't dream it. I've got the mud on my shoes to prove it. Hook me up again right now. I need to know what's happening." He hesitated, his pen tapping a frantic rhythm against the clipboard, but finally nodded. They strapped me back into the chair, the helmet clicking into place, electrodes biting deeper this time. The hum started, the tingling flared, and then there it was. "You won't tell," the voice said, slow and heavy, like tar seeping into my brain. My jaw locked shut, teeth grinding together. I wanted to scream, to tell Dr. Ellis, but my mouth wouldn't budge. An invisible hand clamped over it. My eyes darted to the monitor. It flickered, jagged spikes slashing through the flat lines like lightning strikes, chaotic and alive. Dr. Ellis didn't notice, too busy fiddling with dials, muttering about calibration errors and signal noise. The voice pressed on. "We see you," it said, each word a weight sinking into my chest. "We know you." My breath hitched, shallow and fast, panic clawing up my throat. "We're with you," it added, and the pressure in my head spiked, a white-hot pain that made my vision blur. I clawed at the helmet, ripping it off with a gasp, wires tangling around my arms. Dr. Ellis jumped back, knocking over his coffee, brown liquid pooling on the floor. "What's wrong?" he shouted, but I couldn't answer. My throat was tight, locked, like something was choking me from the inside. I pointed at the screen, trembling, and he looked. For a split second, I saw fear flash across his face. Real, raw fear. Then the spikes vanished. The monitor went blank, silent, like it had never happened. I quit the experiment that day. I tore up the contract, crumpled it into the trash, and blocked every email from the lab, my fingers shaking as I hit delete. I thought that would be the end, sever the connection, walk away, bury it like a bad dream. But the voice didn't stop. It followed me home, creeping into my days like a shadow I couldn't shake. It's not constant. Sometimes I get hours of silence, a fragile peace that feels like a trick. But when it speaks, I can't fight it. Open the window, it says, and my hands obey, letting in the cold night air that smells of rain and decay. Walk outside, and my feet shuffle to the porch, bare against the splintered wood, the darkness pressing in around me. Small commands, harmless at first, like it was testing me, breaking me in. But it's getting worse. Last week, I woke up in my backyard at 3 a.m., standing in the dead, patchy grass. I was holding a knife, the cheap one from my kitchen drawer, its blade chipped and dull-pointed down at the ground, like I was about to stab something or someone. My arms were locked, muscles trembling under the strain, sweat beading on my forehead despite the chill. I couldn't move, couldn't drop it, until the voice whispered, "Enough." The knife slipped from my fingers, clattering against a rock, and I bolted inside, locking every door, every window, tears streaming down my face as I sank to the floor. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it's doing this. I don't even know if it's the BCI anymore, or something else, something older, something that found me through those wires. I tried reaching Dr. Ellis again, dialing the lab's number with shaking hands. It's disconnected, a robotic voice droning. "This line is no longer in service." I checked the university website late one night, scrolling through the faculty list until my eyes burned. He's not there. No trace of him, like he never existed. I even drove by the lab a few days later, heart pounding as I turned the corner. The building was abandoned, windows boarded up with warped plywood, ivy choking the bricks like it hadn't been touched in decades. No signs, no cars, just an empty shell swallowed by the shadows. I sat in my car, staring at it, wondering if the experiment was real or if I'd walked into something they never meant me to survive. Last night was the breaking point, the moment it all unraveled. I was brushing my teeth, avoiding the bathroom mirror because I can't stand how I look anymore. Bags under my eyes like bruises, skin pale and stretched. A ghost of who I used to be. The voice came back, louder, closer, like it was standing right behind me. "Look at us," it said, firm and unyielding. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed to run. But my head turned anyway, slow and stiff, like a puppet jerked on strings. In the mirror, my face stared back, but it wasn't me moving it. My lips curled into a smile I didn't make, too wide, too sharp, teeth glinting under the dim bulb. My mouth opened, and that voice came out, not in my head this time, but from my own throat, rough and guttural, scraping the air. "We're almost ready," it said, and my reflection's eyes locked onto mine, unblinking, blacker than they should have been. I dropped the toothbrush, the clatter echoing in the tiny bathroom, and stumbled back, crashing into the wall. My reflection didn't move. It stood there, grinning, watching me scramble away, a stranger wearing my face. I haven't looked in a mirror since. I can feel it now, whatever "we" is. It's not just a voice anymore. It's in my hands when they twitch without my command, reaching for things I don't want to touch, knives, doorknobs, the dirt outside. It's in my eyes when they dart to dark corners, searching for shapes I can't make out. It's in my thoughts, slipping in images I don't own, dirt under my nails, blood on my hands, a hole in the ground I don't remember digging, voices whispering names I've never heard. I posted this online because I'm out of options, out of fight. If anyone knows how to stop a BCI from doing this, if it even is the BCI, please, tell me. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Every night, I lie awake, waiting for the next command, the next pull. I hear it now, even as I type this. Faint but growing. Finish it, it says, over and over. I don't know what it means. I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow as me or as something else, something they've been building inside me all along. That's where Test Subject Aero 7's post ends. No updates, no follow-ups, just a thread locked 3 days later and buried in the forum's archives. Was it a glitch in the tech? A cover-up by the researchers? Or did they tap into something older, something waiting for a way in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think. This is just the first cursed tale from the world of brain-computer interfaces. You're watching Cursed Territory. Like, subscribe, and stick around. If you've got the nerve,